Hello, I am the Amazing Atheist, and this is a video which you will now watch with your eyes. So this is a question and answer video made specifically for people who follow my blog. If you don't follow my blog, you're a piece of shit and deserve to die. The first question comes from a fella by the name of Wreathed in Flame. I guess it might not be a fella, because these names are pretty gender ambiguous for the most part. It says, what's the most annoying thing about being an internet personality? I don't know why I can't talk, but who gives a shit? That's not really necessary for this particular job. Talking to a camera. Good if you can talk, but whatever. So what's the most annoying thing about being an internet personality? I can't really bitch about my job because it's awesome. I, every once in a while, get my camera out and bitch and complain incessantly about something, and then thousands of people watch it and I make money. So, not really something I can bitch about. Probably the worst thing is when people come to me and say, man, I love what you say. I agree with you 99% of the time, man. 99% of the time I agree. No one wants to say they always agree with me. But there's people that say 90% of the time or 99% of the time. I don't think they're actually like, you know, writing down everything I say and like figuring out, okay, do I agree with this? Yes. Do I agree with this? Yes. Do I agree with this? Yes. And then, you know, at the end of the day, tabulating it all and figuring out that it was exactly 93.6% of his ideas I agree with. So I'm assuming that these percentages are rough. But they always say 90%, 99%. If they don't want to seem like too much of a kiss ass, maybe they'll say 80%. Now you might be asking, all right, why, TJ, are you bitching about the fact that people agree with you? I guess my problem with it is the fact that I am so full of uncertainty about everything that I say. I feel like every time I say something, every time I express a strong idea, there's a big voice in the back of my head like, are you sure about this, TJ? Like, you know, what if you're wrong? What if you're wrong? That's constantly going through my head. What if I'm wrong about this? What if I'm wrong about that? What if my reasoning here is flawed? So it's kind of strange to see that other people agree with me like 99% of the time when I am not even sure that I agree with me that much. So I guess that kind of bothers me. It bothers me that anyone would look at another human being, flawed and, you know, horrible as we are. Maybe not horrible, but we're definitely all flawed, and we all have problems, and we all have insecurities, and we all have neuroses, and all that stuff. To look at someone else and say, I agree with him 99%, I don't know, it skeeves me out a little bit. That's my biggest complaint. So my biggest complaint is that people agree with me and hang on my every word. Datro Butt. Which I probably just picked because it has the name, the word butt in it, and I'm very keen on that. Where would you live if you could live anywhere in the world? Geography is not a big deal until you actually think about, you know, how bad a lot of the world is. Like, I don't care where I live, you know. Ship me to the fucking Congo, I'll probably be changing my tune a little bit. You know, and then you have to factor in the oceans, so no one wants to live in the middle of the ocean unless you have like a boat and you're like a sea captain or something, you know, maybe then. That reminds me, I remember when that one, there was a big story a while back, I don't think I ever commented on it, I wanted to, but it was like a cruise captain, and the boat was sinking, and he like was like the first one to be like, I gotta get off this fucking boat, and then a bunch of people were like, hey, the captain's supposed to go down with the ship. I'm like, isn't that kind of antiquated? Like, is that really necessary anymore for the captain to be like, you know, I'm not getting off until everyone else is safe? I mean, like, I think everyone can figure out, like, how to get to the damn lifeboats, and if they can't, then they probably deserve to drown. Sunshine the Liberator asked, what is the worst personality trait to have? I think the worst personality trait to have is a certain type of contentiousness. Because some people are contentious, but it's entertaining, or it's actually informative, and they're just helping you see things from a different perspective. But then there's another type of person who is contentious for the sake of one-upping everyone else around them. They begin a lot of sentences with "actually." That's probably the worst personality trait, and I've known several people like that in my lifetime. Catfish a Soup Poop asks, do you think human beings can be flawed with too much emotion? For example, the way we can become afflicted with depression. Do you think we have too much emotion for our own good? Sometimes we can't even handle them. For me, it's kind of like been the opposite, I guess, because I've always struggled to be more emotional. I'm very good at suppressing my emotions. I'm very good at not having to feel what I'm actually going through in situations and disconnecting myself intellectually from what's actually occurring around me. And this seems to apply to every emotion but fear. I tend to get very fearful and apprehensive if I'm anticipating something horrible. And I can't seem to control that emotion, but any other emotion I seem to have pretty good control of. I wouldn't even call it control, because control would imply that I can feel those if I want to, but I don't have to feel them if I don't want to, which is not what I have, really. What I have is just an automatic suppression mechanism that says, oh, you're feeling happy, huh? Nope. Oh, you're feeling sad, huh? Nope. And so I just kind of have this barren wasteland in the center of my being, which is no fun. It's kind of boring, actually. So I'm probably the wrong person to ask about this, but I have been having some breakthroughs lately and actually working through some stuff and finding, little nuggets of humanity in the sea of, waste product that comprises the majority of my soul. Mr. Insane asks, how long have you been wearing glasses? Just since this morning. I sleep with them off and I put them on, there. And now I've only been wearing them since a second ago. But if you mean how long I've been wearing glasses in general, which I'm 99.9% sure, there's one of those fake percentages again, I'm 99.9% sure that's what you meant. I don't know, I think I was in like second or third grade probably, maybe fourth. I was a young ass kid. I'm really spotty with chronology. But I was a young ass whippersnapper, and I was fucking terrified of getting glasses because, all I knew about glasses was what I saw in cartoons and shit, that you get called four eyes and it's bad to have to wear glasses and you're a geek and all this shit. And I didn't want that. So even when I got glasses, I didn't wear them. I would wear them in the car when my mom dropped me off to school, and I'd immediately take those fuckers off and hide them in my pocket or somewhere else. Finally, it came to my mom's attention that I wasn't wearing my glasses, and I had to start wearing them. And of course, because the other kids could sense my apprehension, they immediately sicked onto it and were laughing at me and calling me four eyes and doing all the things that I feared they would do, because as it turns out, they live up to their fucking stereotype of being asshole-ish fucking bullies. And I lived up to the stereotype of being a fucking nerd wearing glasses, so whatever. No Damn Usernames Left asked, why did you rid yourself of your majestic beard? Just to reset myself, I guess you could say. When I posted a picture on my blog, I posted it with the caption reset, because that's what it is. It's a reset. It's trying to say clean slate, starting over, going back to the drawing board, don't like what I've become, I'm going to try to be something else. That's the reason behind it. Also, I'm hoping that if I have to look at this fucking double chin every day, I'll be more motivated to get rid of it. I don't know if this person wants this to be pronounced Goibel or Gerbil, but they asked, what are some positions of yours that have recently been altered? In what ways were they altered? What were the catalysts behind the altering? I think the thing that's been altered the most recently is my general position on feminism. I related a personal story to someone who happened to be a feminist, and then they related a story back to me in light of how they feel about feminism and why they think it's needed. And it kind of made me see it from a new perspective. Now, I still won't describe myself as a feminist simply because I can't get behind group identifiers in general. I try to avoid it as much as I possibly can, and it's very difficult in human society to avoid identifying with groups because that's how we think. We like to cluster into these little, collectives, what I like to call superorganisms. People tend to like to identify with other people. I tend to be more of an individualist, but I recognize that individualism on its own can't really get much done. You have to work in groups. You have to have social cohesion. That is, the great power of the human species. Is our ability to cooperate, our ability to swap ideas, our ability to communicate things to each other in, a much more complicated fashion than other animals. Things like deconstruction and skepticism, they're valuable tools for understanding things, especially when you're trying to understand the cold, hard facts of reality. But when it comes to human beings, you need to kind of understand emotion there, and not just from a scientific perspective of, okay, well, if this neuron fires, then they'll feel this thing, and if this is the stimuli and this is the reaction. You need to actually understand the sense of self that a person has, their sense of being, and the emotional attachments that they have to their ideas and the ideas that are created by their emotional attachments. Because at the end of the day, I think we're all kind of the same in one sense, that if someone feels something and you understand that feeling, then you've come a long way towards understanding the idea that they've connected to that feeling. Whereas if you just look at the idea and associate it not with their feelings about it, but your feelings about it, then you're going to misperceive everything that they're talking about, because you're not looking at it in the context of their emotions, you're looking at it in the context of your emotions. And that is the fallacy I was committing with feminism for so long, and also probably a number of other ideologies. Add a Dash of Love asked, I read somewhere that growing up you were always told that compassion was weak. Was there one event that snapped you out of that mindset? No. I think there's very few times in life where we can point to a singular event and say, aha, that's where it all changed. It does happen. There are, moments of extreme emotion or moments of extreme just intellectual recognition where everything snaps into place in this one glorious epiphany, and your outlook is forever changed, your perception forever shifts to one direction or another. But that's not usually how it goes. Usually it's a gradual process that you don't even fucking notice. I wasn't really raised in an environment where I was explicitly told, TJ, compassion is wrong. It's just that I was raised in an environment where that clearly wasn't valued, at least by the people who I was looking to for role models. I mean, there were compassionate people in my life growing up. It's just that they weren't the people I tended to revere. So I can't really say that I didn't have good role models, maybe just that I didn't always select good role models for certain things. My compassion, though, is a very strange sort of compassion. I'll use the death penalty for an example here. People tend, when they look at the death penalty, if they're against it, to say, well, that's because they have this very bright view of humanity and they think that even the worst killer can be redeemed. I think I look at it from a somewhat different perspective, whereas I see normal people as being not altogether that different from the most depraved killer. In other words, I view the entirety of the human race as somewhat lowly in some regards. And then that doesn't mean that I necessarily have a negative view of the species, because I don't think that that's necessarily true. I think what the reality is that I don't view good and evil as opposing forces. I don't view a person as being, oh, that person is good or that person is evil. I don't totally disregard the concepts of good and evil like some people do, but what I do think is that everyone is good and evil. And I don't necessarily associate evil with things I don't like. There are things about some people that might be considered evil in some circles that I actually enjoy. Like if someone wants to whip someone else with a riding crop, but that other person is consensual, some people might say, oh, well, the urge to hurt another person is evil. But then if you factor in the fact that there is this other person who, likes to be hit, then it seems like, it's utilitarian and that there is a mutual benefit going on there, and it no longer seems evil to my perception, but it might be evil to someone else's. Dillodag asks, when Andrew Breitbart died, you said that you were fat and angry like him and would die an early death. Did his death motivate you to diet? I don't know if it motivated me to diet. It did motivate me in several ways. Because I think seeing his death, I kind of realized that if I am perpetually antagonistic in the same way that Andrew Breitbart is, then I'll be perceived the same way as he was after his death, which is to say that some people will be like, oh God, it's so sad, and other people will be like, finally that son of a bitch is dead. And I really don't want there to be that level of division about me dying. I prefer that there be some consensus that it's sad that I died, even if you don't agree with me. And I guess that the way to do that is to be a little bit more diplomatic in the way I present my ideas. And maybe it's a pipe dream. Maybe no matter how I present my ideas, the people who disagree with them virulently enough will turn on me and hate me and, castigate me and so on and so forth. Gunshard asked, would you eat cat meat? I'm a dog person. I've never felt a particular kinship with felines. That said, they really don't seem like there's much meat on them. Every time I hold a cat, they feel very bony. I mean, I guess if you had a big fat cat and you cooked it up and you put it on a plate and the meat looked good to me, I probably wouldn't have any sort of moral objection. I mean, it wouldn't make sense to morally object to eating a cat if I don't morally object to eating a cow or a pig. So, yeah, I guess I would. Domentia asks, how do you feel about self-harm, especially recrudescent, no idea what that word means by the way, recrudescent self-harm, lasting past those angsty teen years? Obviously you don't condone it and shouldn't, but do you view it as a type of disease or more akin to something like immaturity? I mean, my essential belief about human beings is that we are the property of ourselves. I believe in self-determination and self-ownership. How can I say that anything that a person does to themselves or allows done to themselves, how can I say that's wrong? How can I object to that? It's their life. I have no ability to understand, what it means to them. If I'm responsible for them in some way, like I'm a parent, or they have come to me and said, I have a problem, and I really, I'm in a dark place, and I really need your help, that's a whole other story. But, if someone's hurting themselves, like they're cutting themselves or something, and they like it, or they get something out of it, or it alleviates something for them, then it's fine with me. Foot in the Guild Casket asked, do you think people's sexual fetishes and kinks necessarily reflect something about their non-sexual personalities, or are the two relatively removed? I don't know what that is. I don't know. I don't know how to subtract something out of a person and then put everything else aside, because it's all contingent upon everything else. I mean, if you take me and you subtract any part of my personality completely, then I'm no longer me. I'm this other thing that doesn't even resemble me anymore. Like, if you take TJ, the amazing atheist, and you subtract anger, what am I at that point? I'm no longer me, because that anger is a good part of what gives me passion. It's a good part of what compels me to get in front of this camera and talk. But it's not my only passion, but it's integral. How can anything I do have value if it's not worth getting angry over at some point? Like, how could my relationship matter to me if the things that are done to detriment it don't make me angry? Does someone's sexuality reflect who they are? Of course it does. But there's not a non-sexual personality. Their sexuality is part of their integral whole self. If you remove their sexuality, they're not going to be the same person. I don't view human beings as like this pizza where you cut it up and there's all these different slices and each slice represents a different part of their personality. I think it's like all meshed together and tangled in like this fucked up ball where, your sexuality is like this string that's like running all through it and curving and looping through itself in knots and tangles. I think that's every aspect of your personality. I don't think it's all neatly compartmentalized. So thank you guys for watching. Hope it was enlightening. Hope it was entertaining. Hope it was fucking something. I'm the Amazing Atheist.